Hello, welcome to the first year BHM course of Guru Nanak Institute of Technology, Kolkata. I'm Dr. Indrajit Bose and I shall be your course coordinator for this session. This paper is entitled Business Communication with a paper code of BHM N102. In the course of this paper, we have been looking at the various forms and modes of communication in the business and workplace contexts, especially with reference to the hospital and the healthcare sector, where you will take your place once you pass out of this course. We have looked at various aspects of this workplace scenario and the kinds of spoken and written communication which are relevant over there. Now, there is also some grammar to be considered in this particular paper, and I'm going to look at one very important and essential aspect of grammar, the verb tenses, in today's lecture, which is lecture 6 in the series. Now, when we are talking about things which have happened or about daily actions, there is always a sense of time. If I ask you, what did you have for dinner last night? You might tell me that I had broccoli for dinner, or you might say that I had rice and fish. If I ask you about what you are going to have for dinner tomorrow, then you will not use the past tense, I had. You will say, I will have. And if I'm going to ask you about today and what will you have for tea? So I might say, what are you having for tea this evening? So you will say that I'm having tea and snacks for my tea this evening. So there is always a sense of time. What was the last time that you spoke to your best friend? I spoke to my best friend the night before he left for Russia. I had spoken to him the last time the night before he left for Russia. So again, see what is happening over there. I am talking about completed time and actions in the past, but again, there are different points of reference about the past. If I say, instead of saying, I had spoken to my friend the last time, the night before he left for Russia, instead of saying that, if I say, I have spoken to my friend the last time, the night before he left for Russia, it would be incorrect. I am using the perfect tenses over there, but there are degrees of difference about an action which has been completed in the past at some point in the past before another action has begun. Seeing my friend for the last time and before he left for Russia. So that is another point of time in the past. Both are in the past and both are two different actions. So there are some degrees of complexity in the indicating of these tense references which follow the time references. These are just some examples which I have drawn at random to show you how the tense differences matter, and evidently they do matter both in speech and in writing. And this is an area in which people make the most blunders, or the greatest number of errors are tense errors. So we should study carefully so that we can understand what are the kinds of tense differences, what are the different tenses, and how they are to be distinguished. So in today's lecture, I shall be looking at verbs and their time progression, the different forms of the present tense, the forms of the past tense and the future tense, and we should be looking at a lot of examples, case studies, and also common errors which can be corrected. Now, look at the picture sequence that I have got in this slide. There are a number of pictures of people in various actions. What are they doing? They all belong to the hospitality, they belong to the hospital and healthcare sector. So here we have a doctor, an oculist. The doctor is pointing towards the chart. He is showing something to the patient. Again, we have the doctor here is talking to the receptionist. Then we have a patient. The patient is being taken to the surgery by an attendant. The attendant is wheeling the patient to the surgery. Then here we have the patient being scanned by the technician. The technician is scanning the patient. Here we have an attendant or nurse who is wheeling the medicines away. And here we have a doctor and patient, or maybe a doctor and a technician. They are conversing across the table. So there are a lot of actions of people which are done on a daily basis, and these are the verbs. Verbs are the action words. They represent actions, but of course these actions happen over time. Here we have an example from somebody who is familiar to us in our households, Sulata, the cook. Sulata cooks food. She makes curry and rice. She also prepares the dal. She roasts the chicken. She grinds the masala. She serves the lunch. So, what are the verbs over here? Obviously, we have the verbs cooks, makes, prepares, roasts, grinds, serves. All the action words indicating the cooking actions over here. What do they indicate? That she is involved in action. She is doing all the work relating to the kitchen and the preparation of the food in the house. What is the time of these actions? Yes. So, what is said about Sulata and her actions? She cooks the food, she makes curry and rice. Well, she is doing all these things in the present. So if it was in the past tense, what would we say? We would say that Sulata cooked food. She made curry and rice. She also prepared the dal. She roasted the chicken. She ground the masala. She served the lunch. We would say all these things if it was in the past, where we are using ed as the past tense form. But that is not the case. So it is all in the present. So it is indicating that these actions are in the present tense because they are in the present time. Right. So let us explore a bit more. Now, you look at these sentences. Sulata works at our house. What is the time of the action? It is the present. Sulata worked at our house. Maybe it's talking about last year. She worked last year at our house. Maybe this year she's not working at our place. She's working somewhere else. So this is talking about a past action. Sulata will work at our house next summer. So maybe she's not working just now, but she will join once again and be working from next summer. So what are the time differences? The first one is talking about the action which is taking place in the present. The second is talking about something which has taken place in the past already. The third is talking about something which will take place in the near future. So there are some time differences, and naturally there are tense differences in these sentences which are indicated. Now, how do the forms of the tenses change? Now, here I will show you something which I will be developing in the course of my lecture when I'm talking about the different forms of the tenses. When I indicate a straight line with an arrow like this, indicated over here, it is showing the point of time which is traveling from the past to the present to the future. Okay, so you draw the arrow on this side, put the arrow key on the right hand side. That will indicate that the time is traveling from the time present to the future. Now, here you will notice that I have written present and future and past over here. So whatever lies between this point, so notice I have marked out a certain segment in the present with a cross. This is called the time of speaking, or TS. Often you will find in books of grammar, it is indicated like that, TS. So this is the time of speaking. So this is the present moment, at this moment, okay? At this moment, I am in the drawing room and Sulata is in the kitchen cooking the dinner. Okay. So this is the time of speaking. This is the present. At this moment, grandmother is watching television in the living room and mother is knitting in the sofa in the drawing room. So these actions are all taking place in the present. So this is the time of speaking in the present. Now, in the past, so the point extending from this point of the time of speaking in the present backwards into the past. That is the past, all the time that we have left behind or we have already crossed in order to come to the present. So that is past time. That is indicated by this left arrow, which is pointing towards the left. Okay. And you will notice that I have another arrow over here from this point where we have the present moment or the time of speaking in the present, moving towards the future, and it is indicated by a dotted line. Now that's a dotted line because the future, of course, has yet to take place. This indicates the time that is to come in the future, or what will come about in the future, what will take place in the future, future happenings. So if I plot something that is going to happen in the future, like grandmother will perform her puja in the morning. So I can point somewhere around here and say, tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, grandmother will perform her puja. Again, if I'm indicating a past action, then I can put it over here and say that yesterday, grandmother told us a story. So maybe it was yesterday evening that she told us a story. But she's not telling a story right now. She is involved in something else. She's watching television right now. She's watching television at the time of speaking. Yesterday evening, she told us a story, and tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., she will be performing her puja. So I'm indicating a past action. I'm indicating the action at the present moment, at the time of speaking, and I'm also indicating something that is going to happen in the future. So these are called timelines. These are called timelines, and they indicate what is the point of the time of speaking and when exactly the action is taking place. So let us say that it is at a point over here. Can you see I'm clicking the mouse pointer over here at this point in the line, and that is in the past, and I can say that yesterday evening grandmother told us a story, or she told us a story. So this is the point, okay, where she told us the story. This is the present moment, of course, when she's watching television, and maybe I will indicate here. You can see I'm clicking the mouse pointer over here. So I can click over here and indicate the future point of time. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., grandmother will perform her puja. Right, so this is how we indicate time past, time of speaking, and future time using the timelines. So I will be using this concept of timelines throughout when I'm talking about the tenses. Let us see. Okay, the present tense first. Obviously, the present tense is used to indicate actions which are taking place in the present. For example, if I say about Mahesh and Sujata, let us say that we have a story. or a serial. Mahesh and Sujata are both employees of Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai. So they are both middle class people, they are very ordinary people, and they are both management employees working in a large multi speciality hospital. They are working at the Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai. And they have a hard life, they work hard, they also shop during weekends, and they spend time together when they are not working. So, if I'm using a present action, or if I'm talking about something which is taking place in the present, so I will use the simple present. Mahesh works at Tata Memorial Hospital. Okay. Mostly habitual actions will be indicated like this, like I walk or Sujata leaves. Okay. So it is used in time clauses also with the idea of routine. For example, something which is taking place at regular intervals or which takes place at regular intervals. She takes a cup of coffee before answering emails. When she goes to work, before she starts working, usually it is a habit to take a cup of coffee. She takes a cup of coffee before answering emails. Okay. Again, when the main verb is in the future form, again, sometimes we use it in the present tense over here. When it stops raining, we'll go out. Okay. So the main verb, we will go, that is in the future form, but we use the tense of the present tense when it stops raining. Okay. So these are all habitual actions. Suresh is marching. Sujay is walking. Sulata is running. Mary is hopping. Mercy is skipping. Bikram is walking on tiptoe. Matharesh is dragging. Akhilesh is stretching. Vinita is crouching, and so on and so forth. So all different kinds of actions. The present tense indicating present actions or actions at the present time. But we also have the continuous tense or the present continuous. Now this is used to indicate a continued action in the present or something which is going on at the time of speaking. For example, at this point in time, Mukesh is answering emails. So let's say that it is at the moment 10 o'clock. It is 10 a.m. Mukesh and Sujata come into office at 9 a.m. and it is now 10 a.m. and Mukesh is by this time answering emails. So it's an action which is taking place at this moment. So Mukesh is answering emails. Again, it can also indicate a present action, but not necessarily at the time of speaking. I'm reading a new book on British culture. It doesn't mean that I'm reading the book just now. It means that around this time, so maybe yesterday or today morning, I read that book. So I am generally at this point of time reading a new book on British culture. Again, it can indicate a definite arrangement in the near future, like Veena is meeting Mukesh at the metro. So she's going to meet him, and that's not going to be far off. Let's say that she's meeting him at the metro during the lunch hour today. Okay. So look at the timeline over here. I am reading a book. So here, this is the time of speaking. Now, the present moment. And I am reading a book. The wavy line over here indicates that the action is continuing. The action has started a little while ago and the action is going to continue even after the time of speaking. So I am reading a book. I have been reading for some time and I'm going on reading at this point of time. So I am reading. They are wheeling away the patient. So they are in the act of taking away the patient. So this is happening at the present hour. These are all examples of the present continuous. Now, we also have the past tense. Now, the past tense, of course, indicates actions in past times, like he worked in Spain. Let's say that Mukesh, before he joined the Tata Memorial Hospital, Mukesh and his wife Sujata, they were doing higher studies in medicine in Spain. So he worked in Spain for some time. He and Sujata, so you can say that he worked in Spain. She also worked in Spain. So the form that the verb takes is the infinitive plus ed. So when we use the simple past, it will be work plus ed, worked. And it takes the same form for all persons. He lived in Spain. She also lived in Spain. They lived in Spain. So let's say that they lived in Barcelona in Spain. Mukesh and Sujata lived in Barcelona in Spain. And if we take the negative, then it will be did not or didn't plus the interrogative. I'm sorry, plus the infinitive. Or the interrogative will be did plus subject plus infinitive. I did not work in Spain. Did you work in Spain? Like this. So it can indicate a past action when the time is given. Mukesh and Sujata worked last year in Spain. Or when the time is asked about. When did Mukesh and Sujata work in Spain? They worked in Spain last year. Action which occurred at a certain moment of time but is now finished. It can also be used for past habits. He carried an umbrella, but of course he is not carrying one now. So this is in the past time. He carried an umbrella. Or Mukesh listened to the radio while he was in Spain. Sujata went to aerobics classes while in Spain. Okay. So they are not doing these things now. These are all past habits. Like the present continuous, we also have the past continuous, which indicates past actions which continued for some unspecified length of time. Let's say that they happened in the past, but they continued for some time. For example, I was sleeping. The form that this will take will be the past tense of the verb to be plus the present participle. I was sleeping. Let's say that the phone rang, but I was sleeping at the time. I wasn't sleeping when the phone rang. Or was I sleeping when the phone rang? Okay. So these are all past actions which have continued for some length of time. Now we can use this for past actions whose exact limits are not known. I was writing essays in the afternoon. Okay. So afternoon is an unspecified length of time, but it is indicating that the action is continuing for some time during this period. It may also indicate some gradual development without the time expression, or used with a point of time. It may indicate an action which began before that point but continued sometime after it. I was reading a book when the phone rang. So the phone probably continued ringing for some time. It may also combine with the verb in the simple past to indicate an action continuing way beyond it. Or it might indicate a future arrangement, or it may be used as a past equivalent of the present continuous, or an alternative to the simple past. Now look at the past continuous on the timeline. I was reading a book when the phone rang. So there are two actions. You can see this is now at the moment of speaking, at the time of speaking in the present. This is the moment in the past when the phone rang. Now there are two actions. One is that of reading the book, the other is the phone ringing. Now the phone rang at this point in time. Okay? But the action of reading the book was continuing for some time before that. I was reading a book when the phone rang. So I had started reading a book sometime before the phone started ringing, and maybe I continued reading the book up to that point, or maybe I might even have taken up the book after talking on the phone. Okay, so maybe my action was interrupted by the phone, but it started way beyond that time before. So this is an example of the past continuous represented in the timeline. Now I would like to talk about the perfect tenses altogether, and it is very important to understand them very well. Now, first, the present perfect. The present perfect indicates something which has been completed recently. It's a recently completed action. The form is that of the present tense of have plus the past participle. And in the negative form, it will take not plus the auxiliary, and the interrogative, it will take the auxiliary plus the subject. Now, what about the uses of the present perfect? It indicates or it is used for an action in an incomplete period. Like, Tom has rung up 3 times this morning. So, how long is this period of time during which Tom keeps ringing up? So, it is roughly indicated by this morning, but again, that is unspecified. So, it's the action. Okay, Tom has rung up already, okay, 3 times this morning. So, it's indicating the action in this unspecified period of time. Again, lately or recently used with it also indicates an imperfect period. Like, he has had a lot of bad luck recently. He has had a lot of bad luck recently, or it may be used for habitual actions. I have never been late for work. Or it may be used for an action beginning in the past and continuing up to the present and beyond. Like, he has lived here all this life. Maybe we are talking about this boy over here. This boy, Aaron, has lived in the slums of Puerto Rico all his life. Okay? So he has lived here all his life. So this action has started in the past and it has continued for some unspecified period. Okay? Now, we also have the present perfect continuous to indicate an action which began in the past but is still continuing, or it has just finished. The form is that of the present perfect of the verb to be plus the past participle. Like, I have been waiting for an hour and he has still not turned up. So, I have been waiting. It's the present perfect continuous. Completed action, but action is still continuing and far from finished. I have been waiting for an hour. My action of waiting has started an hour ago. And it is still continuing at this moment of time. He still has not turned up. It's the second action is that of his turning up, which has not taken place. Okay, so it's talking about often a past action which is still continuing. It has been raining hard all morning. So this is a past action and the action is still continuing in the present, like it has been raining hard. It has been and it probably is still raining hard. Or to indicate past action just finished, like he has been waiting for me but is now gone. Okay. It's not used in the past. So again, we can have another example like this. The doctor has been busy with patients all morning. Okay, so he has been engaged with patients all the morning. So uh, these are some examples of the present perfect continuous. Now we turn to the past perfect. This is indicating an action which has been completed in the past. It's the past equivalent of the present perfect. The form is had plus past participle. Like, I had worked, I had not worked. Had I worked? I had worked in New Delhi before coming to Kolkata. I had not worked in New Delhi before coming to Kolkata. Or had I worked in New Delhi before? Like, again, we can use this for an action which began at the time of speaking in the past and is still continuing, or which has only just finished. For example, he had been a soldier for 30 years and planned to remain so. So the action of being a soldier has been continuing for 30 years, and it may have just been finished. Or it may indicate an action which stopped sometime before the time of speaking. He had served in the army for 10 years, then he retired and married. His children were now at school. The past perfect in the indirect speech is formed with the present perfect tenses in the direct. Like, he said, I knew her well. This would become, he said that he had known her well. So mostly the past perfect indicates the action which began in the time of speaking in the past and is still continuing, or it has stopped sometime before the time of speaking. Like, when Tom arrived at the bus stop, the bus had already left. So here is Tom, poor Tom, running after the bus which has already taken off and gathered speed. The bus is gathering speed, we can see, and Tom is running after the bus. This is vain, isn't it? Now, when Tom arrived at the bus stop, so this is the first action. Second one is the bus had already left. So the second action taken place already. So action completed in the past. Bus had already left by this time. We also have the past perfect continuous, which bears the same relation to the past perfect as the present perfect continuous bears to the present perfect. The form is had been plus the present participle. I had been working. Had you been working? She had not been working. When the action begins before the time of speaking in the past and continues up to it or stopped just before it, we have the past perfect continuous. Like, it was now 6 and she was tired as she had been working since dawn. So action began before the time of speaking. Okay, and it began in the past, continued up to it, and just stopped before it. It was now 6 and she was tired as she had been working since the dawn. Repeated action in the past perfect may also be expressed in this way, like, he had been trying to get her on the phone. Repeatedly, he has been trying. So he had been trying on the phone to get her on the phone. Now, see, here I have tried to indicate the timelines and the differences between the present perfect and the past perfect. Now, in the first one, we have, I have lived here for 2 years, indicating the present perfect. This is the time of speaking now, and this is the point of time in the past when I arrived. So from then to now, it is 2 years. So I have lived here for 2 years. Okay, what about the past perfect? I had finished the report when he arrived. Okay, so this is the past. I was writing the report. That is one action. The other is his arrival. Okay, so he arrives. Before that, I've been continuing with that action of writing the report, and I had finished with the report before he arrived. So when he arrived, I had already finished. I had finished the report when he arrived. So this is the past perfect. This is a simple comparison chart between the present perfect and the past perfect. Now here we have another differentiation between the present perfect continuous and the past perfect continuous. See, he has been studying grammar for an hour. So duration of the action which began in the past and is continuing into the present. So here, let's say this is the time of speaking. This is the point when he has started studying grammar. So between these points, he has been studying grammar. So this is the present perfect continuous. Okay, and here we have the past perfect continuous. This is the point in the present. This is the point in the past. Okay. So I was tired because I had been driving the car for 2 hours. So had been driving. So point of action somewhere in the past and still not finished before the present. Okay. So I had been driving. I was tired because I had been driving. Had been driving is the form of the past perfect continuous. So these are some differences between the present perfect and the past perfect, the present perfect continuous, and the past perfect continuous. Now I'm going to consider the forms of the future. Now, the future simple is very simple in its construction. It consists of will or shall plus the bare infinitive. I will work over here tomorrow. I shall work in the future. I shall not work here. Or shall I work here? Like. Now, often it is used to express the speaker's opinions, assumptions, speculations about the future, like I am sure he will come back, or perhaps we will find him, or it may be used with or without a time expression. Again, it is used for future habitual actions which we assume will take place, like spring will come again. And it is also used in sentences containing clauses of condition, time, and purpose, like if I drop this glass, it will break. It is also used for formal announcements of future plans and weather forecasts, like it will be sunny tomorrow, okay, or the wedding will take place tomorrow. We also have the future continuous, which indicates the form is that of some action which will take place in the future and will continue for some time. The form is that of the future simple or to be plus the present participle. So here we have a conversation between two people who are skaters. It's interesting. Let us see. Shall we have dinner at 7 p.m.? We will have finished skiing by then. That's a good idea. We will have been skiing all day, so we'll be starving. Okay. So it's indicating some point in the future. The action will be going on at some point in the future. One is that of we will have finished skiing. So by that time, in some point in the future, the action of skiing will be over. And we will have been skiing all day and we will be starving. So we will be starving. Again, this is in the future continuous. uh, I will be going there tomorrow. They will not be working here tomorrow. Or shall she be working tomorrow? It is used as an ordinary continuous tense, or it is used with a point in time for an action which starts before and continues after that point. Like on Saturday, Bill will be playing tennis. It can also express a future without intention, like I will be helping Sujata tomorrow, something that will happen in the future. Again, we have the future perfect. The form is that of will, shall, and the perfect infinitive for the first person or for other persons. Normally, it is used with a time expression beginning with by, like by then, by that time, by the 24th. It is used for an action which at a given future time will be in the past. By the end of the year, I will have saved 60,000 rupees. So this is a point in future time when 60,000 rupees, this action of saving 60,000 rupees will have been completed. Now let us look at the timeline to get the idea clear. Okay, before we do that, just to look at the future perfect continuous. The future perfect continuous is normally used with a time expression beginning with by. By the end of this year, he will have been serving 30 years. It can be used in place of the future perfect when the action is continuous, like by the end of this year, he will have been working here for 10 years, or when the action is expressed as a continuous action, like by the end of this year, he will have been climbing mountains for 20 years. Okay, let us look at the timelines. This is the, sorry, this is the future perfect. I will have finished the report before the deadline. Okay, so this is the time of speaking now at the present. Then we have the future over here, and this is the point of time in the future. Finishing the report, this is the deadline. Okay, so I will have finished the report before the deadline. And what about the future perfect continuous? I will have finished dinner by the time she calls me tonight. By the time she calls me tonight, I will have finished dinner. So she will call me. This is one action. The other is I will finish dinner. So maybe it is 6 p.m. that I will finish dinner. 8 p.m. she will call me. So by the time she calls me tonight, I will have finished. I will have finished. That is the future perfect continuous. Let us look at some examples again from the context we have been talking about of Mahesh and Sujata. These will illustrate the examples of the future perfect continuous, which I have been just talking about. Mahesh will have prepared dinner by the time Sujata returns from hospital. So this is the future perfect. Sujata and Mahesh will have been eating dinner by the time the news comes on TV. Future perfect continuous. Sujata and Mahesh will have gone to bed by midnight. This is the future perfect. Sujata and Mahesh will have woken up by 7 tomorrow morning. Perfect. Sujata will have been getting ready while Mahesh prepares breakfast. The future perfect continuous. And both Sujata and Mahesh will have left for the hospital by 9. The future perfect. So these are some more illustrations of the future tenses in the perfect forms. So I hope that in today's lecture, I have been able, with the help of the timelines, to give you a concrete idea of how the tenses change. And we have to remember that we have always to plot out the events on the timeline. And you will find that if you do that, you can very clearly get a concept of when the action is taking place and whether you have to use the perfect form or the perfect continuous form in the past or the present or the future. So I hope that this lecture has gone a long way towards helping you to master the tenses and to enable you to express yourselves with correctness in writing and in speaking. So this brings us to the end of the lecture for now. Thank you.